Hello everyone, I'm Wonk, and in this video this will be giving you basic information about factions. A faction is a group of people, kind of like a clan, and the idea of factions is to build up your own base and raid other factions. Factions claim land, will protect your doors, chests and other things, and basically people that aren't in your faction won't be able to build in your faction land. If you're PvPing in your faction land, you will also take 10% less damage than other players, so it's a big advantage if you try and stay in your faction land when PvPing other players. I'll now tell you in sections a bit about factions. We'll start with factions power. On Lonks, when you start as a new player, you'll start with 0 out of 10 power. The lowest power that you can have is minus 10 out of 10, and the highest is 10 out of 10. The higher the power you have is the better, and every time you die you lose a certain amount of power. It's usually around 2 to 4 power. To gain power you must stay alive and online the server for 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes that you are online without dying you will gain 1 power. Your aim is to get 10 out of 10 power, and for everyone in your faction to get out 10 out of 10 power. You also want to keep your power 10 out of 10. Or as high as possible. If your power drops, it doesn't just affect you, it affects the whole faction. Everyone in the faction, their power is combined to make a total faction power. I will now tell you about faction land claiming, as this is combined with faction power. The more power your faction has is the more land it can claim. This is good to expand your faction land and claim your. Although if a member of your faction dies, and your total faction power drops lower than the amount of land that you have claimed, this puts your faction at risk. When your faction land is lower than your power, other factions will be able to raid your faction and claim your land. So it is very important to keep your faction total power above the land claim. I will now tell you a few basic commands which you will need to use while using factions. To create a faction, type F create faction name, like so in chat. Your faction name can be between 1 and 10 characters. As you can see, I have created the new faction called Test. Now I would like to set my faction description, so I will type F description, or DESC for short, and then you want to type your faction description. This will show up every time someone walks into your claimed land. So I'm going to set my description as this is a test faction, although I'm sure you'd rather have something more dramatic than that. If you wouldn't like to create your own faction and you'd like to join someone else's faction, then type F join faction. For this video I'll be joining Dangos, so you type F join Dangos and then enter. As you can see, I'm already in a faction, so I'd have to leave this faction first by typing F leave, which I'm not going to do, but I'm sure you get the point. Some factions you could just straight join in, but others you might need to have an invite, and by default you need to have an invite to be able to join a faction. So if you want to invite someone to your faction, just do F invite player name. So I will invite Wonk to this faction, which is me. And then as you can see here, I will be joining F join test, and it says because I've been invited, now I can join it and I'm in test faction. As you can see, this name has come up here and it's got no sign next to it, it's just green. That means I'm in that faction. And now I can Fmod Wonk, and moderators can claim land and can invite and kick people into the faction and out of the faction. And now when I talk, you will see I get a hyphen next to my name, which means that I'm a faction moderator. And if RTH was to talk, you will see he's got an equal sign next to his name, which means he is the faction owner. Fshow will show your basic faction information. As you can see, we've got 2 members, which is Wonk and RTH. We've got 0 land claimed, and we've got 20 out of 20 power. This means that we both have 10 out of 10 power, and neither of us have died for a while. As you can see, joining requires an invitation. So if I do F open, if I spell that correctly, players will no longer need an invitation and they can just join directly without asking, which is not recommended, as it does, like, anyone can just join, teleport to your home and grief. So just do F open again to close it. We've got currently 0 allies and 0 enemies. We'll try and set an it says Dangos have been informed that you wish to be ally, and they accepted. So now their name will come up pink in chat. And if we were to enemy a faction, we don't need to request enemy, we can just directly enemy them by typing F enemy and faction name. So we have now enemy temples, which means when they talk in chat, their prefix will also go to red now, and will be read to them as well. So hopefully someone in temples will talk in a second. And there they talked, and temples have now become enemy. This means Dangos are allies, so none of my faction members can now attack any of Dango's faction members, but we can attack temples. You can also attack neutral members, which are grey, but what red means is you can now attack those people in their claimed faction land. Previously you could not attack them in their land, but now you can because they're enemy. Obviously it's best to get allies rather than enemies, because then you get more people. As you can see, they're now allies and enemies. So if we do F show Dangos, you'll see all these people in here are now allies with me and can't attack me. And if we do F show temples, they have a lot of members, so now we are enemies to all of these members, and we're kind of enemies to their allies, and we're kind of, in a way, friends with their enemies, although we haven't allied any, but so we're all still neutral with them. But as you can see, it's a big faction. They keep their land under their max power, and so yeah, they can't currently get raided. Also, a quick note that I'd like to add: if you do play on this server, the IP will be in the description, and you can only raid other factions on the PvP world, but you are still allowed to create factions on the safe world. Just means if you do have a faction on the safe world, you are not allowed to grief or raid or steal other factions. So really only create it on the safe world if you just want it for a group of builders, basically. To talk in your faction ally and just faction chat, type F chat into the chat bar, and it will go to ally chat. If you say hi, all of your allies will see it, so the Dangos will all see this message, and so will I, my faction. And if I do it again, it will go to faction chat, so it should be green, and only my chat members will be able to see this. So only Range Wonk in that case can see that message. And then to turn it off again, just type in fchat one more time and it goes to public chat. If you want to try out factions or play on my server, then feel free. Like I said, I'll put the IP in the description. And I hope you do come and see the server, and I hope you learnt something from this video. If you have any other questions related to factions, then come on the server and ask me, or just post a comment, and I should reply very quickly. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to see more Minecraft videos. I intend on making them quite regularly now. And I'm pretty sure I included everything important about factions. And if you think I should add something in which you'd like to mention, just post it in a comment to help everyone else out. And thank you for watching.